Is there another question for Representative Naughton? Okay, I'd like to ask about a couple of social issues.
Absolutely.
Talked a lot about economics. In 2004, you voted in favor of a constitutional amendment that would have defined marriage as the union between a man and one woman and would have allowed civil unions. In 2007 and 2008, you voted against the citizens' petition that would have brought a similar amendment to the 2008 ballot. What has changed your opinion of gay marriage over the last 4 years?
In the interim, I met with a lot of constituents, same-sex couples, a lot of people that live in my district, people that have built their own families, built their lives in this district, and it changed my way of thinking, that they had the right to live together in harmony, in love, and raise their families without the state stepping in and bothering them. It was the personal interaction with a lot of different people, and it brought to my mind that I wouldn't want anyone interfering in my life like this, and I don't think the state should interfere in those people's lives. Also, it was time to move on. We had debated the issue at that point for 5 years. We had debated it to death. It was time to move on, and there was no guarantee that if that issue had made it to the ballot, and whatever the outcome was, that it was going to end there. It was just going to precipitate more court cases and more litigation. So it was time to move on. But the bottom line was, I really came around to the feeling that we shouldn't write or even take the chance on writing discrimination into the Constitution, and people should be allowed to live their lives.
In doing a little research for our interview, I noticed a number of whether it be women's organizations or pro-life organizations rank you fairly highly on the pro-life scale.
Mm-hmm.
If John McCain's elected president, and I certainly hope he's not, but it's possible, a new Supreme Court may vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. If that were to happen, how would you vote if a bill banning abortion were to come before the House?
I would vote against it. I think the law should stay the way it is now. I think its access to abortion is safe, medically protected, and the law shouldn't be changed at this point.
Earlier this month, you voted with the House to overturn a governor's plan to raise gun license fees from $100 to $250, voting instead to cut fees to $40.
Absolutely.
Senator Stephen Brewer said, and I realize you're not Senator Brewer, but he had a quote, said, quote, "That ought to teach Governor Patrick to ask for a gun license increase. Bring in an increase and we lower it." Do you agree that the governor needed to be taught a lesson? And either way, why are lower gun fees a good idea?
I don't think the governor needed to be taught a lesson. It was just his philosophy. But I think that outdoor sports, that shooting and hunting, are family sports, especially to many people in our area, and we should increase the access to them. We shouldn't be a family that wants to get licenses for their mom and dad and some kids. They shouldn't be paying out of the nose for those fees. We should make outdoor sports like that more accessible to people, not less accessible.
And this has got to be an issue that, even though it doesn't come up that often, it's fairly difficult in the House because you have legislators from urban areas who probably have a very different idea of the role of guns in their communities. How does the legislature come to a balance?
Oh, it's like numerous things that are a clash of cultures there. But what I would say is that the guns being used in the crimes in their communities aren't legal guns anyways. So raising or lowering gun fees isn't going to help reduce crime in their community. Things that are going to help reduce crime in those communities are things like a bill that I'm been championing for the past several months, and that it's getting ready to go to the governor's desk now, is that's going to increase the penalties for trafficking in methamphetamine. It's going to increase the penalties for this scourge that is reaching down into our communities and affecting Sterling, Clinton, Lancaster, Northborough, Boylston, and what some of my former colleagues in the district attorney's office have brought to my attention recently was that the penalties for it hadn't been changed in the in the past, in the recent past. So it was still considered a relatively minor crime, but it is among the most addictive drugs in certain states, Idaho, Montana, these very rural states that you wouldn't attribute these urban problems to. Upwards of 20-30% of the teens are getting addicted to methamphetamine because it is so easy to make. The labs can be set up in a kitchen, in a basement, in a garage, and the ingredients are found around the house. And so it's changes in statutes like that that are going to protect our public safety, not getting in the way of law-abiding firearms owners who want to go out and hunt or target shoot, getting in their way by costing them more money.
You've talked about changing the criminal penalties for distribution of methamphetamines. There's a ballot question that's going to be coming up in November that would decriminalize possession of less than an ounce of marijuana. What's your position on that change?
I'm against it. It minimizes the effect of marijuana. It minimizes the importance of what a dangerous drug that can also be. I know it's heavily accepted and widely accepted, but we shouldn't be minimizing what these things can do, and I think that does. And I don't think it will do anything to clear up the way it is statutorily now. I think the statute on a first offense, a possession of marijuana, and they don't even mention the weight, but possession of a small amount of marijuana, it's usually what's called continue without a finding for a very short period of time. You pay $50 and it's dismissed. So to an extent, the same result happens. But no, I would be against that ballot question.
Speaking of the other ballot questions, we've already talked about the income tax. I assume that you'd vote no on question 1.
I would.
Yeah. What about the question to ban dog racing in Massachusetts?
I think that sport's seen its day. I would want to work with the employees of those industries right now to try to find more work for them. Potentially, they're already in the gaming industry. Potentially, that dovetails in with my previous plans about expanding casino gaming in the Commonwealth. But I think that's a sport that's seen its day.
Generally speaking, with issues like that, I mean, that seems to be kind of a micro issue, the idea of gaming. The question came up a number of years ago on certain types of traps. Generally speaking, what do you think the role of the ballot question should be in government? We elect you to do
Sure.
a job, and then we turn around and put these questions out too.
It's always tough. Government by referendum is tough, and you used a perfect example. The traps, the so-called inhumane traps on beavers. Well, that passed, got heavy votes in urban areas, because any group that was going to oppose it wasn't funded well enough to get out and actually educate people as to what the effect was going to be. And very quickly and very immediately, within months, you saw the increase in the number of dams right down on Rigby Road in Clinton, on the Nashua River, here in Sterling, up off Route 140. You saw beaver dams being built, washing out roads, and it caused a tremendous problem. And so that was the result of that referendum. So referendums are big hammers to swing. And it's difficult to deal with them sometimes, and the legislature does have to step in. But you used a great example with the beaver trap.